Hi everyone, presenting a brand new case coming from Lian Li, known as the Lancool 217 Infinity. This is a very big case. As you can see, my camera is away from it, just to show you the overall structure. And on my B-roll, I've done a caption as in like to zoom in all the design of the exterior. I'll briefly go through with it. But before I do so, I'd like to thank Lian Li to have provided this case for me to share with everyone, and to Block Soda to have done the arrangement on the delivery. Now, starting off with the exterior, where I've shown you this is tempered glass, is pretty dark tinted. That's why I placed a lamp inside just to show you the interior. And at the bottom of this case, be it this side or this side, is with ventilated holes. The whole lane. This is whereby if you plug fans at the bottom, right, it will draw air from the side instead from the bottom. And over here you have the I/O socket, where you have the USB Type A and Type C, inclusive of the headphone and microphone jack. Now at the front, this is where it features most importantly, where Lian Li, fantastic, genius design, they deliberately done it in a way that it looks like a speaker, but is of a very good function. Reason being, they want to focus the airflow that is drawn by the 170mm fans through this two hole. So there are no grills, no nothing. It's just tunneling of air into the case. Well done. And best part, they've designed this fascia with infinity mirror, whereby you can play with the ARGB. More elegant way to express the case. Well done. Now at the bottom you have the Lian Li logo. Over here, as mentioned on my B-roll, I don't need to talk much about it. And at the rear, I'm not going to go into details. If you missed the B-roll, you can just rewind and check it out what are the areas. But I like to highlight that attention to details when I glide on the rear I/O. I don't get cut. Well done. And as for the expansion slot, now this expansion slot you can rotate, which I'll show you later. Reason for this, right, instead of mounting your GPU horizontally, you can mount it vertically. And as for the PSU, there are two methods to mount it, and there's a reason why they have mounted the two methods, which I'll show you later. This case comes in black or in white. For the MSRP for the black version is 125 USD. As for the white version, slightly expensive, which is at 130 USD. As for the dimension of this case, this is a full tower case. Now on paper spec, the depth in fact is measuring from the thumb screw all the way to the front. So this is at 482mm. From the top to the bottom, this is at 503mm. Now as for the gap, it's a very small gap, probably about 10mm, but it doesn't matter because the air is not drawn through the bottom over here, it's through the side instead. Same goes to this area which I mentioned. Now as for the width of this case, this is 238mm. Now to remove off all the panels is pretty straightforward. Starting off from the top, as you can see, there's this lever over here. You just need to pull this up. Okay, and it will give you the top. And this is where the power button is, and the LEDs. The LED switches, where you control it to control the effect on your front fan and your rear fan, inclusive of the infinity mirror. Now at this top right, you have this cutout over here. Okay, this can be removed. You just need to be careful. Okay, just press it down slowly, and this whole thing will be removed. And what is this for? As I shown you earlier, right at the bottom, this is the I/O socket. You can unplug this, as in like unscrew this whole section here, and to place it here, so that your I/O socket will be at the top instead of the side, if you intend to place this case on the floor. As for the side glass, I find it difficult to pull it this way. So what I'll do is, put my thumb at this slot over here, support with the other hand at the front, pull. See? Then you just leave it up. And to place it back, there are notches over here, aligned to the slot at the bottom. There are 3. So once you align it, you can clip it back on. Just going to remove this. Now at the bottom, this section you can remove too. With this thumb screw, you just unscrew and you can just remove it. Now do take note, when the tempered glass is at the top, which is this, do not take out the bottom section, because the bottom section, this is where the slot that holds the tempered glass. If you remove this, right, your tempered glass will just fall off and you might break it. So make sure if you want to remove the bottom piece, right, first thing to remove is your tempered glass. Now over at the other end, you can remove too, which again, plug over here. This is easier. See, it just come off. And to catch it, different mechanism, which is the whole slot to the frame at the bottom, and to clip it. Now when you clip it back, do note there are 2 more peaks over here and over here. So make sure you press this 2 down too. If not, it will be bulging out. Take note on this. Now as for the front, before I dismantle the front, right, at the back there is a filter. This is where the PSU is. So you filter off the dust. You can remove this, wash it, clean it dry, and you can slot it back. And from the top, right, you can remove this whole frame too, where it's tightened by 2 screws over here, which I've taken the screws. Do not lose these screws, alright? They are pretty tiny. Once you have removed the screws, right, you can just remove this. See, this is the whole top tray, where you can mount your fan, your liquid AIO before you pot it back. And to pot it back, there are notch over here, aligned to this. Okay, let me just grab my pointer. Over here, and over here. So you just guide it back. Whoops. And to leave it down. Then tighten the 2 screws to secure the tray in place. Now, as for the front section, okay, to remove the front bezel, you need to remove 2 cables, which is located at the controller. The cable, you need to take it out. Okay, I already taken out. And inclusive of this, you have to pull it out. Once you've done this, right, you can take this out. Okay, go according to the lines, because this 2 cable is attached to the front bezel, and inclusive of this, the front IO connector for the power button. So make sure you have this 3 taken off. Okay, the 2 cables from the controller and the front connector for the power button. Once you have done this, right, you can remove the front bezel. But when you're removing the front bezel, make sure you push it to the front. Okay, having some leverage over here, so there's empty space, so we can just pull. Okay, I'm just gonna pull. Yep. See, it's out. See, as I mentioned to you, the 3 cables. So slowly take out the cables, and the whole thing will be removed. See? Now, if you want to clean the filters of the fans, not a problem. You just turn and this will be taken off. So you can clean it and to place it back. Align it properly. Okay, take a bit of practice. Okay, align the notch. Okay, I should take this out before I take out the whole bezel. See? Then just turn it. This will be in lock position. So unlock and to take out. Place it back, lock. To move the I/O panel to the top, you will need to do some preparation. First of all, you need to loosen up these cables over here. And as these cables are tucked to this hole, the best way is to remove off this hard disk cage. And to remove this hard disk cage, flip it to the bottom. We have 2 thumb screws over here. Just remove off the first one, which is the first cage. Once you have done this, now the hard disk over here have a lever over here. Okay, not so sure you can see. Right? So just grab and pull out. Okay, careful on the cables itself. So once you remove this, right, it'll be easier to loosen up the cables. Now next thing to do, prepare the cover, because once you remove this, right, you will need to place this in, and this is provided in the accessory package. So what you need to do is unscrew the 2 screws over here, which is 1 and 2. So I'm just going to remove. And when you're removing the screws, right, do not lose them. Okay, I'm going to place on my magnetic disc. Remove at the bottom too. So once you have done this, right, you can now remove the whole I/O panel and slowly guide the cables. As you can see, I'm guiding the cables out. You can put this one side. Now when you remove this, right, you will need to fill up the gap. So this is provided in your accessories package. Place it this way where the arch is facing downwards and the straight path is facing upwards. And same thing, align these 2 holes to this. Once you have done, right, use that to screw it back. This is at the top where you have the slot to fit your I/O panel. Now, having the combo and microphone jack facing that way and the taper side to the back. So you just need to plug all these cables through the hole. Once you've done that, align the taper side at the end and the straight end to the front. I would advise to angle it this way. Put to the rear first, then you plunge the front and push it in gently. So when this is snug, right, make sure that this is flush. Next thing you need to do is to tighten the 2 screws, which is located over here and here. But when you're doing so, right, in the accessory package, one of the package will have this screws over here. Now if you can remember, right, at the bottom there are 2 screws that you need to fasten. These are broader and longer. These are narrower and shorter, and it's of flat head. So make use of these screws. They are pretty tiny, so do not lose it. So I'm just going to screw it in. Once you have done this, right, you'll be able to close the top cover. Now this is going to take some time as it's not threaded at all on the panel. So don't force it. So as mentioned, screw it in, you feel tight, unscrew it, screw it in again, unscrew it and screw it in again. This will be easier so that you don't break the hole from the panel. You don't have to over tighten. Once it's stopped, you can just stop. Now you can use this to cover, but before you cover, it's mentioned to you, right, the top section over here, this you should remove, and do it very gently. I would advise to push it over here. Okay, this is easily snapped, alright, so do it gently and it will just come off easily. Okay, let me just see. Once this is done, right, you can just place it back. See, your front I/O will be at the top. The interior is extremely spacious to work with. As you can see how big this is. There are a total of 9 cutout points, 3 at the top, 4 at the side. Now I consider this small hole as a cutout too. The rest of the 3 at the side, these are with rubber grommets. And at the bottom, there are 2 more. You are able to mount a BTF motherboard, which is of 2 form factor, an ATX or a MATX. Now as for standard motherboard, you can mount the largest motherboard, which is the SSI EEB. But when you're mounting the SSI EEB motherboard, which is the largest, you have to take out this GPU support bracket. If not, it will block the motherboard. And to take this off is quite simple. Unscrew the 3 screws that's located at the side. I already done 2, so right now I'm just going to remove 1. And you can just take this out, giving you more space, or should I say, giving you no obstacle for you to mount the largest motherboard. Now when you take out the screws, right, please be very careful. These are all very tiny, okay, as you can see, so don't lose them. Now speaking about the GPU support bracket, you can swivel this up and down by releasing the thumb screw at the back. See? So you can just put to the level that you wanted, tighten it, and lock in place. And if this is too near, right, you can, if let's say your graphic card is longer, you can move this to this slot. No issue. Now coming to the fan allocation, I'll start off from the bottom. You'll be able to mount 320mm fans. Only 120, right? No 140. And at the top, you can mount 320mm fans or 2 140mm fans. At the front, these are pre-installed. They are the 170mm fans, which has a drawing current of 12 volt DC and the amperage of 0.26 ampere. And these are ARGB, of course. And best part is that the minimum RPM is at 200, the maximum RPM is 1500. Now, having such low RPM, these fans are fantastic. They have very large airflow, which has a rating of 142.56 CFM with the static pressure of 3.34 mm H2O. And for the noise on each fan is at 34.3 decibel. Now right at the back, this is pre-installed too, an ARGB fan. This is 140mm fan. Now this do draw a current of 12 volt DC and has an amperage of 0.26 ampere. But the RPM is slightly different. This is slightly higher, which has a minimum of 200 all the way to the max 1900 RPM, and has a airflow of 81.3 CFM and a static pressure of 2.4 mm H2O. And for the noise, you will be at 34.2 decibel. For radiator placement, you can only do it at the top. You can mount 240, 360 or even a 280. I forgot to mention that the pre-installed fans, be it the 170mm, 2 at the front, and the rear 140, these are all 30mm thick, which tells me that there'll be tons of air coming in from the front and going out from the rear. Now still in the interior, where this is the GPU bracket, now I'm going to talk about the bottom section. As you can see here, at the bottom you have two hard disk caddy, and each caddy can house two 3.5-inch hard disks, which total give you 4. And over here, this is the PSU cutout where you place your PSU. And I mentioned that at the bottom you are able to house 3 120mm fans, but you will need to remove off this cover over here. And this cover are fastened by screws, which are this. Okay, total of 5. So we can just remove. See? And you expose the fan mounting area. Now it has a very unique way to mount the fans, but I'll talk about this cover here. Now this does not come without a purpose. As you can see here, right, there are 4 holes over here. You can mount 2.5-inch SSD. So there are a total of 3. And in order for you to mount the SSD, you will make use of this rubbers, or should I say the rubber grommet, which is in this package. Now do take note, in the accessory package, it comes with small and big piece. The bigger piece is meant for your fan. This is meant for SSD. So do take note on that. Now I don't have a SSD with me, but just to show you, this is how it should be. You just plug this in. Okay, place your SSD at the top, screw it at the bottom so that it will hold. Same goes to here. Now besides this, right, as I mentioned, they are very unique fan mounting. I remounted this. Take a look. See, pretty unique, right? Instead of mounting it to the grill, right, you're mounting the rubber grommets, which I mentioned, the 4 big piece, or should I say the total 12 big pieces, and you are given 2 different sets of screws. These are of longer and these are shorter. Okay, let me just take this out so that you can see it. See, we have the longer and this is the shorter. So for the longer ones, right, it's meant for your uni fans or any fans that is having a height of 28 to 30 millimeter. So for this, right, I'm using the P28 from Lian Li, and I'm making use of this long screws. So what I do is, okay, this is a new one. I will do it this way. Okay, as in like the flat area, right, I'll place it at the bottom. The narrow circular, right, facing at the top. Then you mount it. As in like you screw this long screw in. Once you screw it in, right, you'll be like this. So once you have this, right, it's very easy to fasten. It's just clip on. Having to aim all this, right, at the bigger circular area. Okay, let me just show you. See? Align it and just pull it to the front, to the narrow circular area. So this will hold. See, it won't go anywhere. And I find that to follow the instructions, right, to mount the fan, I kind of like the way that they do it. As mentioned to you, is this way. Okay, and you screw it. You don't have to screw it tighten. Just make sure that there's a gap in between. So when you screw with a 4-point, right, you can just mount it. Now, another unique method, you see me doing it below. The reason is, now besides plugging your fans, right, since you have tons of airflow coming in, right, you can also place your SSD at the top. See, it doesn't block. But you want more cool air to, you know, bring into the case, right? And you do not, I mean, you do not have this SSD, right? You can just remove this totally. This will give even more airflow to your component. And besides this, you not only can mount it this way, you can choose to mount the fan the other way. See? So if you want to see this lining and to cover up the cables at the back, right, you can do this too. But of course you will need reverse blade. Now P28 does not have reverse blade, so got to do it this way. So it becomes very easy, especially for uni fans, cause you only need to feed it with one cable and that's it. Nice touch. Next, assuming that you're mounting the fan at the bottom where this is the PSU shroud, right? So what if the PSU is longer? You will need to shift this upwards, right? But you don't have any more brackets over here. Well, Lian Li have thought about it. They give you this in the accessory package where you can just clip to the front. Okay, which is here. Okay, make sure you make use of the screw to screw this in so that you have the slots over here. So you can just change forward. Okay, I've not fastened this, but just as an illustration. See, so this will push your fan towards the front. Then you can mount your PSU. Now, if you're mounting this way, right, I can only tell you that you can mount 2 fans. You can't mount 3 fans. If you want to mount 3 fans, right, you will need to mount the fans at the top, which is this way. Okay, you can mount the third one where it doesn't block your PSU. But I would say there's no point mounting the fan at the PSU area because there won't be much air drawing in from the back. So I would advise just to put 2 fans if you're placing the PSU over here. And one thing good is that you can place the SSD at the top without any issues. See? So this will give good airflow too. Well done, everything nicely thought. Now, as mentioned to you, there are 2 methods of mounting your PSU. Starting with case number 1, where you want to mount normal, as in like the plugs and switch is at the back. Make sure you remove off this cover, which is by screws. Take it out. So let's say you have a PSU of length 220 and you don't have hard disk. Take out the hard disk cage so that this will give more clearance. See, you can even mount a 220 PSU in length, not an issue. Then next, you just mount this in. And for this cable, right, this is not needed, so you just tuck it one side. And do note that when you are placing your PSU in normal mode, right, besides the hard disk cage that you have removed the second one to give more clearance, also something to take note. If you want to mount your fans, make sure that it doesn't exceed. See? So assuming that this is fixed to the front, as this will push the fan towards the front, right? If you want to mount at the bottom, you can. But just make sure that it doesn't exceed your PSU. I mean, your PSU doesn't exceed touching the fans. So take note on this. Unless you have a longer PSU which touches the fans, right, then you got no choice but to plug your bottom fans at the top, and this will work because they are clearance. Now, second point, if you have total of only 2 hard disks, 3.5 inch, okay, you're just going to place this back. All populated, you need to use 2. You can't let go of any. So I would advise you, choose a PSU length that is not longer than 160. And you can mount it this way instead. So assuming that you have 2 hard disk caddy and you still want the fan to be at the bottom, you can. But first, route this cable which is needed, because I'm going to teach you the second method on how to mount the PSU. Route this at the bottom the cable at the center, okay, tuck towards here, go through. Okay, I have a reason why you do this, and to route this to plug to your PSU. If you're gonna do it this way, right? Okay, I know some of you will just do this. You'll just go around it and go around it right in front, right? And say, oh, this is neater. But you didn't realize this cable, right, will block your PSU from flushing to the side. So this is something to take note. So I would advise to tuck it this way, having it at the center, then route it out through here, and to plug it this way. Alright, then second thing, don't forget to mount your fans if you want it to be at the bottom. Because if you mount your PSU in, right, you can't mount your fan. There will be no space for you to plug in. So I would advise, put your fans in first. And make sure that this is mounted, because you need to push your, you need to push your fans towards the front. So assuming this is already in. Okay, then I can mount the fan. So having this clearance, this is around 160, around there. So it'll be just nice for you to plug your PSU. And for your PSU, right, the modular side will be facing this, this area. Else, for the AC socket and the switches, will be the other side. So I'll just place it this way. I'm just going to mount in. Okay, mount in gently, right, carefully. So as I mentioned to you, right, why this cable must be tucked this way and not routing at the front, because you need to flush your PSU to this corner over here. So right now I'm just going to do that. See? It will flush. Once you have done, right, make sure you use screws to screw tightly, as in like to secure the PSU, then you mount this. Now you might be saying, hey, Cleo, when I mount this in, right, and to tuck it this way, right, when I place the side skirt, will this hit? Well, let me just show you. This is the side skirt. Okay, I tuck it this way, and right now I just place it back with ease. See, it flush. Nothing protruding out. Just nice. And there you have it. Having a PSU this way, and make sure you turn on the PSU, alright, because right now you're plugging to a extension, so you don't have, you don't have the, you can just remove this side skirt, but when you remove all this side skirt, right, as mentioned to you, make sure you take out your side glass panel first before you take out this. But I would advise just turn it on, so easier. So with this arrangement, right, you can have both hard disk caddy and with the fans at the bottom, but only 2, alright, not 3. This is where the cable management area is. There are tons of cable tie points, which these are all Velcro stripe. See, pretty nice. Inclusive of the side, more Velcro stripes. And at the rear, these are plastic clip to clip on to your 8-pin EPS. Nice thought. Besides this, there are 2 additional 2.5-inch SSD caddy. You can just remove the thumb screw and to take this off. Now do take note that the thumb screw is not captive, right? Then when you mount your SSD over here, screw it underneath, then you put it back, and to secure in place, just place back the thumb screw. Now speaking of which, right, earlier on I mentioned that for the PSU placement with the side placement, you can only cater for 2 3.5-inch hard disks. Reason being, right, take a look at the caddy. So this is one 3.5-inch hard disk, and at the top another. So this will add thickness. So if you have this thickness, right, your fans at the bottom, you can't mount it at the bottom, you have to mount it at the top. So that's the reason why. And besides this, right, you not only can cater for 3.5-inch hard disk, as they are slot for SSD too on the caddy itself, and over here too. This is the controller where it controls the ARGB effect on your fans, and the front bezel where you have the infinity mirror, and also the RPM of the fans. Now all this plug you don't have to remove or to plug. They are all pre-plugged for you, prepared for you. All is needed is just to plug these 3 cables. Very convenient. First of all, this is very important. This is the SATA connector. You will need to connect this to your power supply SATA connector, alright? And this will supply power to the controller. And for this tool, is meant for you to connect to your motherboard. If you choose to control the fans and the ARGB effect, be it on the fans or the front bezel infinity mirror, right, using your motherboard utility, then plug this, which this will control the RPM, the 4-pin PWM connector, and this is to control the ARGB, which is a 3-pin 5-volt connector. Now, if you choose not to use the motherboard to control the ARGB or the RPM, you can do that, inclusive of the front infinity mirror. Just download the L-Connect 3 application, and it's all wireless. You can just control it, and you don't have to plug this too. As mentioned to you, your GPU can mount horizontally or vertically. To mount it vertically, you will need to make use of this, which comes with the accessory. These are the long standoffs, which you can bolt below here. So depending on how you want your card to be out or in. So let's say you want it in, right? You just screw this tool to the inside screw hole. And of course, the riser cable, which you need to purchase separately. Then for this, right, you will need to dismantle 4 screws at the back, which I already dismantled. Okay, you can just remove this. See, you just glide. So what is holding this is in fact these 4 screws at the back, which is down here. See? So all you need to do is just to rotate to this direction and to plot it in. Then again from the back, screw this 4 point to the 4 holes, and that's it. These are the accessories that come with the case. You'll be given a instruction manual to teach you how to do the mounting and such, and the bits and pieces, the screws and bolts and accessories, which you will see in this box. You'll be provided with a thank you card and all the screws to mount your motherboard, your SSD, your fans and such are all here. And they do provide clips too. In the event if your side panel clip broke, you can use this to replace. Nice touch. So everything is packed nicely in the box. Besides this, you have this strap. Now as I showed you earlier, this is whereby you want to replace the side I/O to the top. So this is the strap to cover that hole. And this is your familiar, whereby I show you that once you clip this to the front, right, you can push your fan towards the front. And this is a gap cover, whereby in the event if you were to plug your fans without the cover, and you have this rear where you have the cover right near the PSU strap, so this is to cover the gap. Well done. As you can see, Lian Li always does it correct, where the ARGB effect is very vibrant. And right now I'm just going to show you how you're going to toggle the switch at the top to change the pattern or the static colors on the infinity mirror or the fans. Now do take note, the top switch, there are 2, only enable you to change the effect on the fans, which is the front and the back, and also the infinity mirror, but not the rest of the components. So take note on this. Now, assuming you want to change the fan pattern, just hit down to M2 on my right. I mean the switch itself will label as M2. Just press once and it will cycle. See? This will change the fan colors. There are different colors, as in like static colors, and inclusive of patterns, which I believe you guys can actually refer to the instruction manual for all the patterns and such. So there are various kind you can toggle. See? So this is how you toggle the fan itself. Now, another thing will be the ARGB on the infinity mirror, which you will need to toggle the M1 switch, which is on my left. So I'm just going to tilt it here. Pay concentration on the infinity mirror. So when I press the M2 switch, right, it will follow, see? And again, there are selective patterns, so you will need to cycle. See, this is rainbow. And this is another kind. So you can just cycle through the switch. Okay, now in the event, if let's say you want to synchronize all this, be it your infinity mirror, your your front fan or your rear fans, right, to sync with your motherboard, on the M2 switch, just press and do a long press till you see the color change, then let go. So right now I'm just going to press it, hold on it, see? So I know the color have changed, and when you look at it, it's synchronized with my palm, okay, and my motherboard, inclusive of my GPU and such. Now, in the event if you do not want to have ARGB effect, then you say you want to switch off the fan, the infinity mirror, inclusive of the rear fan, you just need to hold on M1 and M2 switch together, press it together simultaneously and wait, and it will just shut off. See, this is off. And of course my rear is off. It's just a reflection of my ARGB on my motherboard. Now one thing I wish that Lian Li can do is to synchronize up some way, but it's going to take some time because it's like, you know, the motherboard had to synchronize together with the controller on this unit, and I don't think there is a ARGB out from any motherboard. Anyway, this is just some thought. Now if you want to toggle back, you just click this, okay? Any of the switches, it will bring back the color back to life. Now there is one more function which I've been trying till I find out that the controller is missing something, which I check out from the agent. Now there is a function whereby you can synchronize all this, as in like the front fan, the infinity mirror effect, and the rear fan, to make use of L-Connect 3. The trick will be on the M2 switch. So when you press on it and hold, right, once it turns white, okay, this is where you will need to go to the L-Connect 3 application, synchronize up with the device, then from there you'll be able to control it. Now for more information about the L-Connect, how to control this case itself, right, all the ARGB effects, right, head down to their official website. I'll just leave the URL in my description and you can just take a look. Now having said this, right, I am going to do a thermal test, and I'm very curious between what's the difference between having the GPU vertically mounted and horizontally mounted. And as what I feel, right, most of the time I like my graphic card in my main unit to be vertically mounted, as I always feel that it will gain more benefit. So we shall see, and right now on with the test. Let's begin with the components that fit into this case, which is the Lancool 217 Infinity. On my top left, you can pause this and have a look. I'll be using a Ryzen 9 9950X AMD processor. And as for the RAMs, if you look on my right, yeah, these are the nice RGB RAMs. Now, indeed, it is very nice. Okay, off topic, take a look. These are the RAMs. Okay. If you guys like what you see right here, right, and you want to purchase it, right, please be wary that these are very tall profile RAMs. Okay, the height is 55 millimeter. Okay, back to where I was. Just like to show you, something different. Now, as mentioned, these are beautiful RAMs. Not only this, they are high capacity and with good timing. Okay, sounds like a salesperson, but this is something which I like. Anyway, moving on. For the motherboard, I'll be using the ASRock X870E Nova. I know a lot have warned me through email, even in comments, even in Reddit. Cleo, do not use this board, it will kill your processor. Touch wood, since day one, when it's released till right now, I've been changing lots of different version BIOS, or should I say updating the ARGB version, and using various, processor for a couple of months, like the 9950X or the 9950X 3D or even the 9700X and such. Nothing happened yet. So let's hope that this will not happen when I do the test right here, right? Anyway, I'm just saying that for my usage, I don't think I see any problem over there. Okay, moving on. For the GPU, I'm using the ASUS RTX 4080 Super OC version. And for the liquid cooler, yep, some of you might be scratching your head. Hey, Cleo, you have different liquid AIO with you. Why do you have to choose this Galahad 2 Lite? Yep, I like it based on the fact its budget is of a good price and it can perform. In fact, this Galahad 2 Lite, since the day I have it, alright, I've been praising it. I love it based on the fact that it does perform very well. The only thing is that for this liquid AIO, right, because it's ramping up about 3700 RPM and it can be noisy when it's at night. Okay, you can tune it down to run at 80%, which is around 3200 RPM. That will, lessen down the vibration and such. Anyway, I like this, so I'll be using this to test. Next, a lot have followed me in my channel, and you know that I like to test in room temperature, which is 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. And for those of you out there who do not know me, I'm from a hot and humid country. And some of you even suggested, okay, those who do not know me, can you control your ambience temperature? Set it to 27 degrees Celsius, set it to 28 degrees Celsius. I mean, to me, right, I feel natural to use a PC without any control temperature. Okay, this is a personal take. So I'm sharing my personal experience with you. And I'm not based on the fact that, I have to control my temperature and to run the system, which I don't find is correct. Okay, this is my thought. Anyway, moving on. As mentioned that my room temperature is 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. And there are certain things that I need to tweak based on the fact that having this room temperature, right, my air surrounding me is warm. It's unlike in colder countries or cooler countries where your room temperature is 28 degrees Celsius and such, right? Your breeze, right, is cool. Okay, especially during winter time, you guys have to turn on the heater, right? So that's the reason why I have to tweak it down to tame down, because most of the time I'm having this temperature, which is 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. And what are the tweaks? I've enabled my RAM XMP profile. I've done the B-core offset to minus 100 millivolt with a load line calibration level 2. This is considered above average. Okay, as in like being aggressive on this motherboard. Then for the RAMs itself, right, I've toned down the SoC voltage. In fact, I written here wrongly. It should be VDD CR_ SoC voltage. So I've controlled it to run at 1.15 volt. I know that by default you will run 1.213 volt, but I wouldn't want to run this high. And having to set this voltage, right, I've run IDA 64 stability test and also OCCT test with the AVX2 settings. It passes 2 to 3 hours. So that's the reason why I've set it to this voltage. And by the way, by setting this voltage, right, it doesn't mean that you will run it this 1.15. It will jump to 1.17 or 1.18. I just want to tone down below 1.2. Okay. Now, as for the PBO limits, I've not done anything on the PPT, TDC, and EDC. In fact, I'm following AMD default specs. okay, where the PPT is 200 watt, the TDC is 160 ampere, and the EDC is at 225 ampere. The only thing that I've done is the curve optimizer and the curve shaper. Now, for the curve optimizer, since this is a 2-stack processor, for CCD 0, I've set it to minus 20 magnitude, and for CCD 1, I've set it to minus 15. Now, some of you out there, okay, send me email or write comments saying that, hey, Kyo, you should try minus 30, minus 50. I do appreciate that, you know, you want to tune down, you know, undervoting that much. But for me, right, even if you undervote, be whether you overclock or you undervote, right, there is a limit. You have to give some slack to your, motherboard and your processor. Okay, I don't believe in such a thing as, like, you know, pull to the extreme. This is something which I will not do. That's why I limit myself just nice, not too much, not too little. So these are my specs on the curve optimizer. As for curve shaper, as you can see, there are 3 frequency which I'll play with, which is the mid frequency, high frequency, and max frequency. And all this frequency, right, each have 3 thermal points, which is the low, medium, and high. And for mid frequency, these 3 thermal points I'll set it to minus 15. For high frequency, I'll set it to minus 10. And for max frequency, I'll set it to minus 0.5. Now, what you're gonna see when I do the test itself, this is what you will see. Okay, these are all the recordings and how it's been done. As mentioned to you, I am curious on how the thermal is like when I place the graphic card vertically, which is like that, or horizontally. On the top 2 that you see, right, these are horizontally mounted. The only difference is that the first picture over here you see, right, this is without the fan at the bottom. Else, on this section over here, there are 2 fans at the bottom, and these 2 fans are making use of the Lian Li P28. That's right, performance fans. So once I've done this horizontal test, right, I'll move on to the vertical test, whereby same thing without the fans and with the fans. And how I conduct the test is pretty straightforward. For each of this that I've done, right, basically I'll run a 30 minutes stress test on Cinebench and running firmware at the background, so both will stress on the processor and the GPU. And when it's warm up, right, I'll let it, once after the 30 minutes warm up, or should I say stress test, nothing goes wrong, I'll let it idle for 5 minutes. And once that's done, right, I'll run the 10 minutes throttle test. And the 10 minutes throttle test will be the recording that what you will see over here. So be it having it horizontal without fan, horizontal with fans, or vertical without fans, or vertical without, with fans, right? All this are done in this sequence, which is 30 minutes stress, 30 minutes stress, 5 minutes idle, and 10 minutes the final recording. Now, with this said, right, things to take note. Okay, it's actually on the reading over here. Basically, at the top section, this is where the CPU will stress on, like the thermal, the clock speed, the V-core, or should I say the CPU core voltage, yep, and such. Then over at this section, right, this is where it shows you that my my liquid AIO pump, right, is running consistent, which is above 3.7K. Then the radiator fans, which is actually on the AIO, this is connected on a separate connection as compared to the case fan. As for the case fans, right, these are the 170mm at the front and the 140 at the rear. Now, as mentioned to you, I've plugged in additional fans at the bottom for another test, which is over here. So you'll see that BTM, these are the bottom fans, and you can see that how much is running on the RPM. Then besides this, right, there will be temperature reading on your motherboard, on my motherboard, on the MOS, which is actually the VRM, the RAMs itself, which is actually the RAM gig kit. You have 2 thermal results over here, and the M.2. And right below this is my GPU, which is the 4080 Super. Again, you have the temperature, you have the hotspot, etc. Now, a lot will tell me that you have very good GPU, temperature and such. But for me, right, I personally will take the hotspot more than the GPU temperature, because GPU hotspot is based not only on the GPU die but the VRAMs, okay, and such. And right at the bottom are the GPU fan. Okay, for some reason I don't understand that, having 3 fans on the card itself, how come there's only 2 reading? Interesting. Anyway, these are supposed to run equal, so you will see the readings over here on each of the tests I've done. Alright, with this said, I will let you witness yourself. Okay, once done, right, I'll talk about the results. Here we go. Results are out. Orientate you on the legend on this list over here. As you can see over here, you can see that for the fan profile, right, will be like horizontal, no BTM, meaning to say there's no bottom fan. If width, it will be BTM. Same goes to vertical mounting of the GPU. Now, these are all the temperature, which is from the CPU, the motherboard, the VRM, or known as the MOS, the 2 RAMs, the M.2, the GPU, and the GPU hotspot. And over at this section where it says pump, fans, and such, right, all these are the RPM. And if you notice, right, for the bottom fan, some are with NA, based on the fact that there are no bottom fans tested. And followed by the GPU fan that is running. And these are the scores. Okay, now for all this, right, are based on the average at the 3 minutes timestamp, which is like this. Okay, this is 3 minutes. So within the 3 minutes to 3 minutes to 2 minutes 40 seconds and such, right, I took down the average readings. That's why you have this over here. And as for the score at the end, right, you can rewind and have a look at the recordings again. I took from here, see all the scores. I've double checked and I've seen it. Now based on this, right, I have to derive which 2 configuration, be it the vertical, okay, which is this, or the horizontal, which has a best thermal result and such. So this is what I come up with. So all this highlighted in blue, right, are the best reading. Take for example for CPU, the processor, okay, among the 4, which 2 is the best? I'll just highlight it in blue. Same goes to the motherboard, the VRM, and such. So overall, when I look at the whole thing, right, and when I calculated the total best, as in like how many times it's been highlighted in blue, these are the count. So as expected, well, for some reason, a lot have come telling me that, it's no difference between the horizontal and vertically mounted. Well, there is a big difference. If, okay, your fans are, okay, let me just show you over here. Now take this diagram over here. If your fans are blowing from the bottom and your graphic card is doing horizontally, most of the airflow, right, is being blocked by the graphic card. So your graphic card will have the advantage to cool down. And when it passes the hot air up, right, your processor will suffer. This is what I feel. So by having it vertically, right, your air is passing through the heatsink in a more rapid way. So there won't be any capture on heat or heat absorption within the case itself. Especially for hot and humid country, I strongly encourage to actually do vertical mount if you can. Okay, so for my setup, most of the time, my main rig or my secondary rig and such, right, all are vertically mounted. Now coming to a result, as you can see over here, let's take for example horizontally mounted. Okay, if you were to put a fan at the bottom, see, it does cool off certain things. If you to compare this results and this result, see, it does cool off, but it's not a lot, okay, based on the fact. And looking at the results, see, these are the results. And if you were to put the graphic card vertically, take a look. All right, this is horizontally with no fans at the bottom. This is vertically, okay, it's sitting up, I understand. And when you come to placing the fans at the bottom, take a look at the result. See, it's similar, I mean, for the CPU. And for the rest, right, if you have not noticed, right, having it vertically mounted and having to blow the air, okay, I mean to blow the air through the motherboard, right, in a rapid motion, right. See, all these results over here as compared, okay, if you compare this with the fans at, okay, let's take for example the horizontal mount and the vertical mount with the bottom fans. Okay, I'm talking about this and this. So as you can see, right, there is a drastic change. Take a look. Can you see the temperature? Okay, maybe I'll go one by one. Starting off with the mumbo. Okay, the mumbo area, the DRM area, and the RAM areas and such. See, it's a drastic, not say drastic, probably about 2 degrees lower or 1 degree lower, but it's still considered very good. See, the RAMs itself, by right, if you have it horizontal mounted, right, it's 46.2 degrees Celsius. Else, if you have it vertical mounted with your GPU, right, your your RAMs and VRMs, right, are much cooler. See, and having a much cooler, run, right, your processor will be able to kick even further because your motherboard is cool, and the thing that drives the processor up, right, when the motherboard has a better cooling, it will just pump more, current, or more, I would say that they will do its work to push the processor. And with a good cooler, right, liquid cooler, right, it will just, sustain the bus speed. And resulted, look at the score. Okay, having it vertically mounted, fantastic. And throughout this run, right, when I run the test itself, yes, it does. This case does make noise, but the thing is, it is not a sharp pitch, because thanks to the front and the rear fans, they are of massive build, which is 140 at the back, 170 at the front, running at lower RPM. So you only get a low hum. And best part is that the case structure itself, right, later I'll show you the tempered glass itself at the side. There are isolation form to absorb the noise from escaping out from the case. Well done. Where does this Lian Li Lancool 217 Infinity stands? I would say very well. Excellent design, excellent choice of what they have done. It's pretty spacious. Now, first of all, they have done a very good, innovative, in fact, a very good step, whereby they channel all the focus at the front. So they've been tampering with the front design. Their main focus, in fact, is this two hole over here, which contains the 170mm fans. And you can imagine how much air is being pulled at the front. And it's being focused, as mentioned, with this two hole. As there are no grill, no nothing, so everything is locked and chamber tons of air into the case. As I show you the thermal results, it does check out very well. And mind you, I am from a hot and humid country, and I'm not lying or saying that testing on a 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. As you can witness over here, see, my room temperature is 30.7 and towards 31 degrees Celsius, and I've not tested in an aircon environment, and yet my thermal results fantastic. My 9950X, for the very first time, I've never come across that it's not heating below 80 degrees Celsius inside a case, as most of my tests is done on open bench. Yes, I do get max about 77, 78 degrees Celsius, and that's it. or maybe to some of the liquid cooler, right, that does 76 degrees Celsius, but that is in open bench. Once I mounted in the case, it will heat up, you know, 5 to 6 degrees Celsius, that's for sure, and it will be over 80 over plus degrees Celsius. But for this case, I have nothing to compare. It's fantastic, and especially when I, you know, have the caption of doing this as a vertical mount with a bottom fence, right? It tells everything. It works out well, because most of the suction of the air not only comes from the front. This is the major part where it draws air in, and at the bottom it does make use of the side ventilator areas from this end and the other end, and it just pushes to my card. And as mentioned to you, right, if you have this horizontally, right, there is a blockage. So while your graphic card is dissipating heat from the top and from the bottom, right, okay, the bottom is actually hitting my motherboard, so that is one part where it accumulates heat, and the other part is that moving from here, right, it pushes the warm air to the motherboard area. So this case has done it right, whereby, see, I can recess my fan beneath the top section over here, and without any worries, I can plug in a 4080. This is actually a massive card to me, okay? I can plug this in vertically, as I've shown you when I talk about the ARGB demo. Well done. Now, besides this, right, the whole structure of this case is fantastically built. Okay, it's pretty heavy, but one thing about it is that when I try to carry the case, right, there's no gripping for me at the front or at the back, only at the side with a very small gap. So I got to hold the case this way. So that is actually a minor compromise. Now, also another fact that at the top where I told you the switches are, now is, if it is true feeling that I press, because this you can't relocate, you see, if you place this at the desk and you want to turn off the ARGB effects and such, right, you might accidentally press the power button and to shut down the machine, which it happened to me too. So probably I would say that Lian Li should design in a way that the LED switch, right, follow the I/O panel, just leaving the power switch alone. That will be safe. If not, probably I would say that, you know, protruding out the buttons not flat together with the power button, that will resolve the issue. And another thing is that if you're not forgotten that I mentioned that if you want to remove off the bottom section, right, you got to remove your, the top glass panel. Reason being, right, because I myself, because this fence, right, is easily accessed, as in like when you open through here, see, I can just access it, unplug the plug, or to take this out. But the thing is that I've forgotten that this bottom section here, right, the slot is holding the tempered glass. I almost break the tempered glass, so this is something which you have to be careful on if you want to feather the things at the bottom, and if you want to remove this, right, make sure you take off the top glass. Now, coming to the mounting on the GPU, do I find any problems mounting it vertically? No. The only thing that you need to do best is to remove off your rear fan, because this is the obstacle where you plug a large and tall. This is actually 150, alright. If you're having 160, right, you can plug in two, not a problem. It's just that you need to remove off the rear fan. So this is actually one of the things that you have to take note. Some might feel that, oh, I'm not able to fit in based on the fact that this is blocking. No, just remove this. Okay, you can just park towards the motherboard and you just slice in your graphic card. It will do. And there are tons of gaps. See, as mentioned, you can bend the 12 volt high power nicely when it's horizontally mounted. But I would strongly encourage that if you're living in a hot and humid country, right, place this vertically. Perfect. Even if you want to mount bottom fans, because in other cases, if you want to mount it vertically, right, you worry that they might not be able to mount bottom fans. But for this, right, you don't have this issue. And I've tested that if I were to mount 320 fans at the bottom, right, the temperature is really not that much of a difference. In fact, the rear is kind of redundant. You should not be mounting a 360 at the back. I mean, sorry, 160 at the, sorry, 120 fan at the back. Reason being, right, it creates tons of noise. Cause the hovering gap, right, between your PSU and the fan, right, is so near. So when it sucks in, right, it does some kind of whistle kind of channeling. That's the reason I removed that off, since it doesn't, show any big difference of the temperature. Having this tool, right, is of another state. Okay, this is wide open. So when you draw the air, especially for the P28 of Lian Li fans, fantastic. It does pull in tons of air, but it does not make noise. Okay, that's the thing. Now, coming from the cable management point, okay, not too sure if you can see. Probably I'll just turn this on. See? Tons of space for you to fiddle with the cable management. Okay, I might have to tidy up a bit, but I still can squeeze it, not a problem. So long as your PSU doesn't exceed 160 millimeter in length, right? If you are doing it sideways, right, it should not be a problem. Now, even if you to mount it, imagine that if you mount this as a normal position, which is here, so long you don't have a hard disk, or should I say, so long you don't have two 3.5-inch hard disks, right, at the rear, you can take it out. Plenty of space for you to fill, not an issue. And what I like about this cable management area, right, is in fact the cable tie. It helps a lot. I don't have to get physical cable ties, those plastic ones, to clip and clip. All Velcro strap, nicely done. And the allocation of where it ports is exactly where you wanted it to be. Okay, it's like your 24 pin connector, okay, your Type C and your USB, all fitted nicely. Well done. Now, some improvements I wish that Lian Li can do on this case itself. On the as I mentioned, the danger of removing the bottom, right, you might fear that the glass panel will just drop. Why not do it like Lancool 3, where you have it swivel? You don't have to be very complicated, it's just a swivel point. So as and when I can just remove at the bottom, that will be great. Now, another thing I'd like to, I forgot to talk about the function itself. Now, it has great features to look great with ARGB. You can control physically with the button. You can bypass the switch and to use your motherboard utility to control it. And the last point, which I can't illustrate, which is the L-Connect 3 application. So all this are done nicely for you. So probably I'll say that this is in fact one of my favorite case as compared to the rest of the case. Okay, I got to admit, I like AFO case. I like the 217, I like the 216, 207, and this case very much. In fact, this case is my favorite right now because I like how they actually designed the channeling of air. Now, with this said, I'd like to thank Lian Li to have provided this case for me to share with everyone, and to Block Soda to have done the arrangement on the delivery. Now, if you guys are new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. And do me one last thing. If you want to help my channel, click on the like button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.